Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about The Adam Project, which was releasing on Netflix this past weekend, and I'm going to talk about spoilers for this movie because I have a lot of thoughts on this film that I want to get off my chest and talk about in this review for The Adam Project, starring Ryan Reynolds, directed by Shawn Levy, the same directing and acting duo from Free Guy, and also going to be the directing and acting duo in Deadpool 3, which I am very excited about, more or less because of Free Guy and a little less because of this movie. But we're going to talk about this movie, a movie that I found very entertaining, but not too great. So what is this movie about? Essentially, it's about Ryan Reynolds' character in the year 2050 who is in a world where there is time travel. He goes back to the year 2022, runs into his younger self, and they're off on an adventure to try to change the future, essentially. So that is a basic premise that you've probably kind of heard before, kind of seen in different time travel movies. So, of course, this movie is going to reference other rules of time travel and say that's not how this movie works. It works a different way. So essentially how time travel works in this movie is you have a fixed point in time, and that fixed point in time will stay consistent until, something will change in the future. And then once that is set, then the entire future will kind of fall back into place after the events have been already changed. And so that is how Ryan Reynolds is able to stay with his younger self and with his dad for a majority of this movie on this little adventure that they're having. I will say the thing that I loved and absolutely loved about this movie is the pairing between Ryan Reynolds and this kid who plays his younger self. His name is Walker Scobell, and he really embodies the type of sarcasm, this type of snarkiness that Ryan Reynolds has, because Ryan Reynolds, for the most part, is just playing the character that he plays in pretty much everything he does. And I think Ryan Reynolds plays that type of character very well. If you do like his humor, you do like his type of performances that he has in movies like Deadpool or Free Guy, I think you will enjoy this movie. This movie is more kid-oriented compared to the other two, which is nice and family-friendly for this movie. For the most part, there's some adult jokes in here too, but it's not afraid to do a couple fart jokes here and there. But this movie was enjoyable for me in terms of that, and that relationship could have been fairly cliched, but it goes in a very mature route in terms of really tackling the fact that this kid's dad had died a couple years prior, and so he's still dealing with the grief and the trauma from that event. And the older Ryan Reynolds version is even 30 years later still dealing with that same trauma and that same, I guess, brokenness that he has from his childhood. And I think they tackle that subject very well, especially when they do go back to 2018 to talk to their father, played by Mark Ruffalo. I love that stuff because I think it really works in terms of, you could have gone the cliched route where they save his dad from dying and all these different things, but no, they have a conversation and they kind of reconcile with their loss and they're able to move and grow from that. And I love how both these characters kind of had their own endings. I know I'm going straight towards the end of this movie, but this is an important thing to talk about. So at the end of the movie, Mark Ruffalo's character really gives a talk to Ryan Reynolds saying that he was loved as a child because he grew up for 30 years not knowing that, essentially, thinking that his dad always cared more about his work than he did about his own son. And to have that conversation at the end of the movie was a beautiful moment. In terms of the son, he was able to see his dad for one last time and also learn those same things, but also reconcile the fact that, the way he treated his mom in terms of this grief was a very messed up way to do this. And Ryan Reynolds was kind of regretful of the things that he said to his mother when he was at that age. And so this kid was able to learn from his older self the regrets that you have. And I think everybody would do that. Everybody would go back in time and talk to their younger selves and tell them not to do that one idiotic thing that they would do, or not behave the way that they did when they were at this age, in this integral moment of their life that can set them from either becoming a more, just a more grown and more matured version of themselves, or becoming something like Ryan Reynolds' character who is purely damaged by this trauma. There's a lot of things that you can learn from this movie, and I think in terms of the way it tackles the very ending, the final scenes of this movie, with them not undoing the death of the father and having a more story where it's kind of reconciling with your loss and with your grief, I think all of that was brilliant in this movie. And unfortunately, most of that fun stuff that I'm talking about here is in the first half of the movie and the last 5 minutes of the movie. And there's a whole section after, I guess, once you get to the year 2018, after the whole Zoe Saldana thing, which I think she was criminally underused. You have a talent like Zoe Saldana and you're not utilizing her to her fullest extent. She was great in this movie in her small limited role in that little section that she had. And I did think that the romance between her and Ryan Reynolds' character was very cute, and I thought it was very earned at the ending when they were able to meet each other one more time, or again for the first time. I guess time travel is weird, but once they were able to meet in that, in that classroom with her being lost in the wrong building, that was such a cute scene to watch, and it was earned. I did feel that relationship between them in that one scene in the movie, but after she's gone from the movie and they go back to 2018 with the father, there's some stuff with the father that's good, but then the plot of the movie gets so wrapped up in this thing with the villain of the movie. It's really when you see Catherine Keener's younger de-aged self where this movie starts to fall apart a little bit, because I get the whole thing where, okay, they need to go back and stop time travel from ever being invented, and it'll fix all the problems of the future. That stuff is fine, but the way that it was executed, and especially with not just recasting a younger actress to play Catherine Keener, I think that was a big mistake. I will say it gives me so much more appreciation for the de-aging in some of the Marvel films. I know a lot of people don't like the de-aging stuff, where they think that it looks robotic or thinks that it just like takes them out of the movie, but to see this and with Catherine Keener in this movie and seeing like even the Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War, yes, that one still looks a little wonky. It's more, kind of in that weird just area where you're not sure what you're looking at, but it looks incredible compared to this. And I don't blame the visual effects artists. I blame this movie for trying to, use this technology with such a mid-budget movie, which is also something that I appreciated about this movie. This could have been a movie that took place all in the year 2050 or a lot more in the year 2050 with all this technology, but no, it decides to take it back and to try to do a more character-based study of these characters rather than trying to be a big extravaganza. When this movie tries to be a big extravaganza, that's where it starts to stumble. That's where it starts to falter. This isn't a massive $200 million budget movie. This movie's a streaming movie, so for one, it's not going to have a massive Marvel level budget, but it's also not going to be a super small indie level budget too. They're a mid-range budget. With those type of movies never really reach theaters anymore. It's really just the small independent movies that are released in theaters along with the big tentpole blockbusters that's released in theaters. So in that way, it's kind of a bummer that we didn't get to see this on the big screen. But at the same time, this feels like a really solid streaming movie. It's good for the family. It's fun and entertaining. I can see some people not minding the issues that I have about this movie trying to be more extravagant in terms of its, final act battle that they have in this, facility where they're trying to take over. I think some of the comedy stops landing in that section because it's less character based and it's more situation based. And all that being said, I'm still excited to see Shawn Levy take on the directing role for Deadpool 3 that I really hope is rated R. I think they have said that it's going to be rated R, and I do think it will be set in the MCU, which gets me very excited for them to play in that sandbox. And I do think that this directing and acting duo is really, really solid. I loved Free Guy. I think I have a review up for that on this channel, and then this movie I thought was pretty solid, and when it was great, but like I said, it does falter quite a bit. But that still does not take my anticipation away from Deadpool 3, because I love Ryan Reynolds' take on that character, and I have high hopes that they're able to have fun in the sandbox of the MCU. So I'm excited to see the future of this directing and acting combo. I think they have a lot of films in them, a lot more original movies, a lot more IP-based movies that they can do with Deadpool 3, and I'm excited to see where they go in the future of this acting directing duo. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys leave a like and comment down below what your thoughts are on this film, whether you hated it or you loved it. I'm curious to hear all of your thoughts on the Adam Project. So thanks guys for watching this video. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, do all the things, and I hope to see you all in my next one.